Here's hoping that you had a lovely and wonderful Christmas, and also wishing you the best in 2026. Now, as we enter into this new year, here on The Situation Right Now, we talk about people, power, and politics, and why you should get into the new year knowing. Now, I'm going to be hosting a politician, businessman, and former banker who's an engineer by profession to discuss 2025, 2026, and what we should be concerned about. Now, join me after this break on The Situation Right Now. I, your host as usual, Dara B. Welcome back to The Situation Right Now. With me, your host as usual, Dara B. Now, as we head into 2026, 2025 was quite a bumpy year for most people, professionals, and the general populace alike. And we also had lots of noise in 2025 around the 2030 agenda. It's also a year that started badly, or well for me, either side you look at it. I had to spend 73 days in prison on allegations of broadcasting information that was likely to incite violence. The matter is still before the courts, and I'm still reporting to the police every Friday. My passport is held, and I've paid bail for the sum of $500 United States dollars. Now, this was the political year and the things that happened in 2026. But in studio this evening, I'm joined by Wilbert Archibald Mubaiwa. He's the president of the National People's Congress. But before he became actively involved in politics, he was a banker of repute and also a civil engineer by profession. Now, he is now looking to push the politics of this country and correct issues that he believes are wrong and need to be corrected. Now, I want to welcome you and thank you very much for joining me, President Mubaiwa. How was your Christmas holiday?
It was a working Christmas holiday. My Christmases have always been working Christmases.
Why do you work on Christmas where it's supposed to be family time? People are supposed to be resting and reflecting on the year.
Family time is not supposed to be defined by law or by culture or by any other principle. Family time is supposed to be decided by you as a father and the mother and the children. You're supposed to decide when you want to go to see their grandmother in the areas, when you want to go to Kariba as a family. You can't have the whole country resting. We are not God. God is the only one who rested on the seventh day. If the country rests on that same day, what happens to the country? Someone is going to be working.
As we talk about working, it has not been a very good year for the working people in Zimbabwe, basically because of the economy. And as a political leader, what is your view around the economy in Zimbabwe?
The economy in Zimbabwe, well, there is a paradox around the economy in Zimbabwe. When you talk about foreign direct investments, you hear they have gone up. When you talk about your gross domestic product, you are told it has improved. You are told almost has improved. Inflation has gone down. And yet the people don't seem to see that the result in their own pockets. It's a bit paradoxical. But the way I look at it, as long as important things that define an economy are not done, there will be no change for the ordinary person. As long as we focus on the wrong things, when we talk about the economy, there will be no change for the common man. I'll give an example of GDP. I know when we study it in economics and other areas, it's supposed to be a measure that defines how a country is progressing, the growth within a country. But you see, in a country that is like ours, or like any other country where the wealth of that country is in very few hands. Imagine you are the only one producing in this country and you are growing by 100% every month. You define the country because you are the only producer. The GDP of the country is growing, but it's in only one man's pocket. So the GDP might improve, but how many people are contributing to that GDP? So nothing was defined by the positive figures that we got in our budget, in the statements even of the business people, because they are talking about their own pockets. I want us to talk about the general population. There is something that every country must do so that it filters into the pockets of ordinary people. When production is covered, for me, based on my own studies and understanding, by at least 30% of the population. In other words, if 30% of the people produce at very reasonable levels, the country can grow. But with only 2-3% of the population is what is producing, how do you produce for 15 million people? How can 5 people produce for 15 million?
What is the problem that's making 5 people, that is making our GDP rely on 5 people or 3% of our population, while the rest is suffering?
Because we have not invested in the relevant areas as a country. I know we call for foreign direct investment. I know we call for people, individuals of this country to invest in certain areas, industry in particular, that's what I want, manufacturing. We do that. But as a country, at the government level, what have we really done to promote that investment by people? And what have we done as a nation to invest in those relevant sectors? In other words, when you talk about the industry, what have we done to make sure that industry grows? When you talk about manufacturing, what have we done as government to make sure that there is growth in manufacturing? There is no single individual in the world at the level where we are who can become a billionaire on his own without the involvement of government. People who grow everywhere in the world, people who become billionaires, yes, we write about them, we read about them. But the biggest factor that makes economic growth is government, by what it does. For example, just provision of space for production, for productivity. That in itself is government's role.
So you are saying to me right now that if government fails to play its role, you will have less billionaires in Zimbabwe, or you might not have them if government does not open up space and does what's supposed to do.
Definitely. You can't have a billionaire without government. We can't have a millionaire without government. Everyone who becomes a millionaire, if they look at their business, there is a government role. Yeah, we pay tax back to government, but we pay that tax because of the role that it plays. And what is the role that it plays? The main one is to provide the enabling environment for business to thrive. We need to have an infrastructure that works. We are talking about energy. We are talking about water. We are talking about roads. You can talk about ICT. That's the first thing. And then the most important thing after this is the provision of space. Luckily, as a country, we've got lots of space that can be used for production. You know, we are 3 times the size of Great Britain. Our population is 15 million. Great Britain is 70 million. But more than 70% of our country is idle. It's not developed. That's why you can drive for 100 kilometers without seeing a development along a particular road. We need to directly make sure that we edge production everywhere. I've always said we have 70 districts, including the 6 in Harare and the 6 in Bulawayo. But I want to talk about 58 outside Bulawayo. and outside Harare. I'm talking about Chiwi, I'm talking about Zaka, I'm talking about Chirez, I'm talking about Mashingo. I want to talk about Mashingo as a province because I have a particular reference to it. I want to talk about Gurule, Mutoko, and so forth. If these places continue to be trading centers when we are not producing anything, it means they are trading in what is manufactured elsewhere outside this country. And when you rely on what is manufactured outside your country, it means you are taking money every day from your country or your place of residence to where it is produced. Yes, we've got people who directly externalize and are criminalized by law. But we have got people who are officializing, externalizing every day because of the need to have certain products in this country. Even those who are manufacturing, ask them what percentage of inputs are coming from outside. It's probably a minimum of 40%. What they need to get from outside to here. It's that which we need to develop. Gurule must become a manufacturing center. Mubaiwa must become a manufacturing center. Because when you look at Mubaiwa, it's the size of a country in Europe. A country that's doing much better than us. It's the size of the Netherlands. When you look at one district in this country, it's the size of the Netherlands. And when you look at the gross domestic product of the Netherlands, it's almost equal to the gross domestic product of Africa. About 50%, thereabout. You ask yourself, if you 1.4 billion people have a GDP equal, almost equal to 18 million people. I'm not sure how much they are. There were 11 million people about 10 years ago. But their GDP was almost equal to the GDP of Africa. Now, when you take South Africa produces a lot, Egypt, Tunisia, and so forth. Let's take away these countries that are producing, not those that are consuming. Then we say, what is the GDP of the rest of Africa after we take out South Africa and so forth, compared to that of the Netherlands, compared to that of Sweden? It tells you we are not producing. So our GDP does not mean anything. That's the starting point. Government must provide, one, the space, two, the means for these people to
where
produce.
are they getting it wrong? I mean, we have been analyzing these problems around Zimbabwe and Africa as a whole, and our leaders tell us that about colonization, the West, these are our problems. In your view, are these our problems?
They are part of our problem. We cannot deny the negative effects of colonization. And when I talk about colonization, I'm talking about who you are seeing in me right now. I'm speaking in English. That's a product of colonization. Well, I'm not a Christian. I could probably have been a Christian. That's a product of colonization.
But regardless of the fact that you are colonized, you see these things. You know that we need to do these things.
Yes.
Why are those in power failing to see it?
It's because not everyone in power has removed a certain element of colonization in them. Not everyone in the academic world, especially the academic world, have removed the elements of colonization in them. Because you see, when we talk about democracy, for example, is it our own product? Never mind how good it is. Is it something that we created? But you can see almost everyone sings democracy as if it's the one that produces a program of development. Democracy is only a philosophy, just like Ubuntu. But our academics, our politicians stand in front of you and talk about our democracy. Our democracy. I hear South Africans talking about our democracy has moved very well. And yet they are burning other Africans in tires. Is that democracy? It's because almost every concept that we praise today is foreign. Are we sure we cannot craft our own concepts and philosophies that makes us grow? But even without doing that, yes, I'd say colonization plays a part. because we are a product of colonization. But there must come a leadership which says, yes, this sounds good, democracy sounds good, Christianity sounds good, Islam sounds good, Hinduism sounds good, Judaism sounds good. But is it what defines our rate of growth? No. Regardless of what religion you subscribe to, growth is when you produce something. Will you produce children if you don't get married? Obviously you won't, unless you are going to adopt them. So you won't produce any food until you grow in your field. You won't produce any industrial products unless you have an industry. So that's what we are failing to do.
Our African leaders have been preaching about these things. From the time of Robert Gabriel Mugabe, there was a whole lot of talk around beneficiation, a whole lot of talk about let us start producing internally. These things only surface or are spoken about during election time. And the moment election time goes, the same people who are telling you, let us internalize this, let us do this, the moment they catch a flu, they fly to Singapore. The moment they want to be on holiday, they fly their whole families using a whole bunch of taxpayers' money. Right now, we're talking about a Senate president who took 64,000 United States dollars to just do curtains. Where does colonization come in?
That's colonization. That taking of 64,000 is a product of colonization. Because, for example, if she had taken 64,000, I don't know whether it's true or not. If she had taken 64,000 and bought equipment to produce curtains, it would have been more than enough. She would have employed at least 10 people, 20 people to produce curtains. I'm not talking about curtains for a house only, curtains for a whole community. Because when I looked at the equipment that you used to make curtains, it's very cheap. 2,000, 3,000.
So is it colonization or is it just pure greed and corruption?
You cannot separate these.
Colonization taught us to be greedy,
yes.
Taught us to be corrupt.
Yes, I will give an example. Like, for example, what the Portuguese did when they came here. They would take those people that they thought were intelligent, take them to become bishops and priests. Some of them never came back. Colonization is about teaching you how to be greedy, especially when you're with them. You remember Ngugi wa Thiong'o? You remember when it was raining and some people were sheltered there and others were negotiating to go in to be sheltered from the rain. Each one who went in never came out. Do you remember that book? Because he became comfortable. Each one who went in never came out. That's colonization. It changes you because you're told, no, don't worry about those outside because you're now okay. And we've internalized that without knowing it. And how does our education become an accomplice to this? I applied to do a PhD and then I withdrew at one of the local universities. Because what I didn't like was that in order to get your PhD, you had to study a lot of articles, books, and done by people in Europe, America, Britain, and so forth. I wanted to study leadership purely from a local perspective. But you were forced to quote a professor in Germany in order to get your PhD. I said, no, I'm not looking for a PhD. I'm looking for knowledge. If I can get the knowledge about why we are failing to proceed, where are our leadership failures? Then if I study a German professor, I will know about Germany, but not about Africa. So what we end up applying here are theories from Europe, but where are our own theories? Even our own history is based on the history written by the Portuguese.
Why are we selective in terms of what kind of knowledge we want to get?
Because the world has taught us, unless you quote a number of professors, you won't get your PhD.
But you can't start trying to theorize a combustion engine that was already developed, can you?
But this is history. Combustion engine, you don't even have to theorize it. We already have it. We can simply dismantle it and make one without going to Europe.
We also already have working governments in Europe, working governments in the US. Why can't we just use them and make, as we have used the combustion engine very well, why don't we use the leadership model very well to have development?
You cannot, because a leadership model and a leadership practice is based on existing challenges and problems in a given place.
Do you think our challenges are peculiar? No one has ever suffered this corruption.
They are peculiar because they have never been colonized. We have been colonized. I don't want
America was colonized.
No. It was colonized by the same people who are running it. So it was not colonized. The people in America who were colonized are not even part of the system. The people who colonized them are part of the system. So they are using their own system. So America cannot be an example.
India,
Australia, yes, I'll come back to India. That's why I'm saying what we need to do is probably what India did. That's what I was coming to. You must say, I am in my own house. My brother is very rich. I cannot go and borrow from my brother every day. What should I do in order to get from where I am to where I should be? Start producing at your own level. At your own capacity. We are not. That's what I'm saying. We are not doing.
Where is the problem? Where is the loose nut?
Because the problem is we are trying to use an existing system in China and everywhere to come and implement here.
That's why those who have run this country for the past 45 years don't know this.
They don't. Because if they knew, they would have done it. Because it is simpler to do than to go to Europe, send experts to China, and then they come back here to tell us China did this. We don't know what China did. Even if you go to Europe today and you sit in a workshop and they tell you what they did, you will come back knowing less than 1% of what they did. Because they will never tell you what they did. And in any case, it's common sense. If you want to produce meal in Guruwe, you simply put a milling plant there. It doesn't need you to go to China. If you want to produce a car assembly plant in this country, yes, you can go to China. Why? You are looking for partnerships. You are looking for people that you can bring here so that they can run that. They can start that. But for the majority of things that make this country grow, you don't need to go to China.
We've gone to China and brought people who are mining and decimating our environment, even scared places of worship, haven't we?
We have not gone to China to bring them. They have come here and we have accepted them. In our culture, it's not much Sawira. But you see, Sawira is not supposed to come and destroy your family. He's supposed to come and abide by the rules and ethics of your family. If a Sawira is failing to abide by what you do in your house, right? You chuck him out. Or you put him in line. We are also to blame because you see, we've got monitors of development in this country. Every local authority has got it. Government has got them. EMA is there. And so forth. The Ministry of Local Government is there. On a daily basis, they are supposed to know which mountain is being dug out, which area is being dug out. And they are supposed to check, is there a permit for that? If there is a permit, is the president aware? Because when it comes to developments like mining, it cannot happen without the knowledge. You cannot bring a miner, no matter how big they are, to start mining in Zimbabwe without the knowledge of the president, without the knowledge of the minister, without the knowledge of the chiefs in that area. But I know in this country it's happening. I hear reports. They have started digging there and there. So those are some of our own failures. But I guess that's where corruption also comes in. I believe those people got papers. I've checked some of them. They've got papers. How did they get these papers? Sometimes there is no actual, they actually start before there is the approval from EMA. So these are our internal weaknesses, not Chinese problems.
This is also as a result of colonization.
When your brain is weakened, it can be, but I'm saying colonization does not play a big part.
Okay. What plays the bigger part?
The bigger part are the practices that we have adopted of living, using the same laws, the same acts of parliament, the same everything that we found existing in 1980.
But we are quick to change the acts that deal with power, how long we stay in office.
I agree with you. That's wrong. It's wrong to start at those things. Power is derived by doing the correct things in terms of development. You don't have to change a statement that says the president. That statement is everywhere in the world. The president has got that authority. So these things we are supposed to change first are the things that limited opportunities to African people. Because if we don't change that, we will continue to give opportunities to people who already had the opportunities before 1980, including others like the Chinese who were not here before 1980, because they are using exactly the same laws, the same bylaws, and so forth. We should look at that very seriously. That's where the problem is. But the actual problem is at leadership level. I don't believe we have got good leaders in government. Let's assume the president was a very good leader. If you don't have a leader at the ministerial level, if you don't have a good leader at the principal director, at permanent secretary level, at whatever level below there, you don't have good leadership. Because the president alone, no matter how good he is, cannot change that. I believe ours is a leadership challenge.
Is it not the reason why we allow our president to appoint these ministers and they're not elected so that he can choose good leaders amongst them? Yeah. So if he doesn't have a good leader at ministerial level, it is him who is to blame, is it not?
Well, he becomes blamable because he has accepted advice. Some of them are lawyers or liars, both liars and lawyers in one. Some of them are just people who have been appointed on the basis, not necessarily of knowledge, but of closeness to power and so forth. So leadership dies. The president becomes liable because he has left those people there. What I think a good leader can do, whether he has got a degree or not, whether he is a professor or not, a good leader should be able, when he receives a report from an expert, he should be able to know what's wrong in that report before he even puts it to the experts. Because an expert report is supposed to address ordinary issues. And the president, before he reads a UN report, an IMF report, should know what should be done. It's common sense, but to me, if you are a leader and you can't pick that this technical report is lying, even if you are not an engineer, then you are not a good leader for that post. A leader should be able to read that.
You are an engineer, President Mubaiwa, and some people have advocated for Zimbabwe to have an engineer president because they say that countries that have engineers as presidents have progressed. What is your view on that?
Yes and no. Why? Because you can be an engineer who is very stupid. There are engineers out there who have not achieved anything besides being employed as engineers by an ordinary man who started a factory, a man who is not even an engineer. They are there. You must be an engineer who has common sense, who have got knowledge about development outside your engineering. Any profession can only be successful if it resides in a person who understands the country in general, who understands development in general.
So a lawyer can equally be a good president?
Yes, a lawyer can equally be a good, anyone can be equally, even one without a degree. Because it doesn't take a genius to know that you need a hospital everywhere. It doesn't take a doctor. It doesn't need an engineer to know that you need a road, you need dams. No. The people who use those things know those things are needed. So they can become the leaders. An engineer becomes an advantage if he is also intelligent, if he is also endowed with wisdom in terms of development. So in those countries, they've got very critical ways of assessing the level of intelligence, the level of wisdom in a given person. And it so happens that you are likely to get that more in engineers and those who study development studies and other things than in other professions. For example, an accountant. I've always said to people who talk to me who are accountants, I said, I don't want to start by training someone who wants to count money made by someone else. I want an accountant who knows how money is made. who has got ideas about how to make more money, not one who counts how much have we received and so forth. No. If you get an accountant like that, you've got a wrong accountant. So if you have got a president who only relies on the constitution for purposes of running this country, you've got the wrong president.
Do you think we have the right president right now?
In terms of what he says, I will not say he's saying the right things, but they are not doing the right things. You get my point? They are saying the right things. He's talking about industrializing, he's talked about infrastructure. Those are the right things. But we are not seeing the industrialization on the ground. Unfortunately, when we talk about industrializing, we are trying to help those countries, those companies that exist already. We go to Delta and say, what do you need to grow? We go to, sorry, I'm mentioning Delta. I'm just giving examples of existing. That's not industrializing. When you go to CZI and they ask you for help for their members, members are people who are already producing. I want to go beyond that. If you're talking about industrializing, increase the number of people who are producing. Don't want to worry about those who are already in there. They are covered by the statutes. They are covered by everything. But the ones who are not covered is blessed Mshanga. We have got this ambition of doing a factory in Mutare. And there's no space and there's no capacity. I'm talking about Mubaiwa. Yeah. We have got this ambition to produce beer in Mutoko. But there's no space. Those are the people we should focus on. I don't want us to focus on people who existed during the time of Smith.
Yeah. Now you talk about Mubaiwa having an ambition to do the factory beer. Yeah. He loves beer. I want us to zero in on the issue that how then, if you're saying you're not worried about those who are already existing and who are supposed to be producing, how then do you improve the quality of production in the country when you leave those who are already producing to die? Because for the reason why the CZI is calling for help is because those who have already been producing are dying at the moment.
Yeah, but they are also calling for assistance. But let's look at their benefits. Let's look at the cars they drive. Let's look at the loans they get. Let's look at the holidays they get. I will start, but can you cut down on those? I even saw an energy company that produced the holiday homes. You know, that they bought this where their managers can go. And they were asking for an increase in tariffs. I saw different companies, you know, because they have invested in these holiday homes, right? They are saying we've invested 100 million in this month. We want to be allowed to increase tariffs to cover those costs. The question I was going to ask them if I was sitting in power, I was saying, how does a holiday home increase power production? How does it affect power production? It doesn't. So there should be no rebate, no benefit for someone who is producing something that has no direct impact on what they are producing in their factory. There are so many things done by our companies that have no direct impact on productivity. And yet we allow them to benefit by putting in those things. The CEOs who earn, I know someone who earns more than 60,000 a month, right? They also have their children sent to school by the company. They have their holidays paid for. And yet there is a guard in the same company who is earning $200. He does not have those benefits.
But when you were the boss at IDBZ, you used to earn these obnoxious salaries.
No. That's when I discovered that if you manage what is consumed at the top, you can increase what is produced at the bottom. You can also increase productivity by those at the bottom. I'll ask you the question that I asked someone. He was in a bank. At that time, he was earning $15,000. It was a lot of money. But the teller in that bank was earning $600. So I said, if you think the teller can survive on $600, why do you need $15,000? If you think $15,000 is what is needed to earn a decent living, why are you giving someone $600? We have got those imbalances in our economy. Imbalances at wage level, at salary level. They also need to be addressed. So yes, we are focusing on government, especially in our first part. But my actual statement is that the crimes have been committed both by the private sector and the government. They have shared. They are in complicity in coming to where we are. Our problems have. There are managers right now who are in South Africa, sent by their companies on holidays. Indeed, their people can't even send their children to school. A country must have a system that ensures that those at the bottom earn a living wage.
And how are you going to do that? Because you have a political vehicle in the National People's Congress, and you want to be in office. What is your plan to deal with this?
To start with, the value of someone is not seen in his degree or whatever, so that you give him a higher salary. A higher salary should not be the norm. The salary should be within manageable limits. If you produce as a CEO of a company beyond what was expected, we give you a bonus. That's why in America, you hear a CEO has been given a $20 million bonus, and yet his salary is $282,000 a month. He gets a bonus which is much higher than his salary. You know why? Because he has produced. Let's pay you for what you've produced, not what you say you're going to produce. So that will have to change. Industry must have to compensate based on productivity. I visit construction sites very often. We have no control of our staff. The managers are there, but they don't know what to manage. I'll give you an example. I saw when they were making these roads, right? And someone was on a grader, and it had been packed, and he was on the phone. How do you allow someone who is running a grader to be on the phone? How do you allow someone who is not a manager to have his phone next to him? How do you allow your website? How do you allow someone to access anything that can be accessed? Any website that can be accessed. How do you do that when you're in a company that produces clothes? If you go to England. So it's also some of our practices. You don't take your phone. If you're an ordinary worker, you don't take your phone into the factory. You leave it there. Only the supervisor and the manager must talk to. Here, someone at work can stop to work and say, hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? That's also a problem. We are not managing productivity. We are supposed to know what a person is supposed to produce by the end of the day. How much a grader, and this is a grader hired on an hourly basis. And the operator is taking some time to be on the phone. And you are paying an hourly rate. Is that the problem of government? The private sector has a role to play in ensuring that they measure productivity and they pay according to productivity levels. Builders, class 4, class 3, class 2, they are supposed to lay certain bricks in a day, assuming everything to be equal. And yet they spend so much time on the phone where he's supposed to lay 600 bricks per day, he earns 300. And yet he still earns the same wage per hour as advocated by NC. There is a lot of indiscipline throughout the country, both in industry and in government. You cannot have this mess and blame it on government alone. It's not possible. There is mess everywhere. When I'm doing my own things, I do my own constructions. I stopped long ago to employ contractors. I tell people you can't be on the phone while you're laying bricks. You shouldn't. You talk, unless it's an emergency, it goes to the main line in the company. And the economy says there's a problem at home. The manager gives you the right to go out. The supervisor does that. This is an indisciplined country across the board, both in our families, in our industries, in our businesses, and in government. So we have a lot to do, but it takes a word. It takes a law to stop that. And a law, it can be an internal law, a company law, right? That says a guy who is on the production line cannot go there with a phone. And that should be normal. This is the only country where companies buy cars for almost every manager. South Africa doesn't do that. You can investigate. We have got enough money. So I am saying if we cut down on those excesses, we can do enough research on improving the quality of our products.
Here we buy cars for comedians, for musicians, for everyone, even, and they're donated at status.
We shouldn't do that. If any donation is to be done, it should be very silent. If I'm going to donate to you, I should see what you are doing and then come and give you. I didn't go to the public and say, hey, Blessed is working very well, I need to give him a car. They will ask me, what has he done? Especially if you know the guy who is getting the car did not do anything. He's not done any service to community. You know what I would rather do instead of buying 300 cars for my party? For example, let's say I'm not the president, I've got enough money. I would rather buy equipment for Parenya too, from Pillow and so forth. That's good service to the community. It's because there is this indiscipline across our society. Even at the lowest level, there is indiscipline of its own, at every level. And it comes in because we are focusing on the wrong things. For example, we are focusing at a political level on someone who says Mubaiwa is a very good leader on his own and everyone else thinks I am not. We are focusing on self-praise. We are focusing on things that have no relevance to actual growth of an economy. So we are all to blame. But the leader is more to blame because he's the one who is supposed to bring in the direction to say, I know we have done this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. This is the time to change because this is time to shape up or ship out. If I discover I have failed to change and I've been elected president, I'm not someone who is very good at staying in one place. No, if I think someone else can do a better job, I will resign.
That's African.
No, it is African. People have resigned in African. If you go back to our chiefs, some have left and so forth. It used to happen. It's just that we have not seen it since we became independent. But in our own culture, people used to resign. People used to step down. I can give you examples. Of course, sometimes they stepped down and created a dynasty like the Majigiras did, the Temples did, and so, or like how every other dynasty was started. It's because they had felt someone had stayed for too long, and in order to be in power, they had to create a dynasty and so forth.
Mr. Mubaiwa, you have a military background.
Yes.
How can a soldier be trusted with democracy? Because you are not, your background does not allow democracy. Military is run by instructions.
Do you think if you're commander of the army, you can work by instruction? You've got 20 generals, you've got brigadiers and so on. You think an instruction is enough to? If the military doesn't work on non-democratic principles. That is if we understand what democracy means. I don't want to use the word democracy at any point in my life because I don't know what it means. Because if it's something for which I have to go to school in order to understand, I would rather wait until I go to school. The military works on teamwork. And teamwork is about appreciating each individual around you, understanding what they are capable of doing. So if democracy has anything to do with teamwork, because I've read about teamwork in books on democracy, then the military is democratic.
But you don't get to choose. You don't get to choose who's your army general, do you? You don't get to choose where you are deployed. You don't get to have a choice.
You always have a choice. I'll repeat what I've always said. No one in the army is sent for a job for which he is not aware, for which he has not participated in crafting the strategies and objectives and so forth. I'll give an example. If we are going to be building, let's say, a hospital, and I don't even know about that hospital, I get to be asked to do a report and say, if we are to have a hospital in National and Central Military one, where do you think we should have it? And what do you think? So I do a thorough report, a total report, starting from the beginning to the end with a recommendation. Right? I do that report myself. And when I present it to my commander, if he thinks I'm good enough for that, he then says, can you run with this report? Do you think that's an order? I actually know in practice, soldiers don't work on orders unless it's an order for an emergency to say doctors are on strike. Can all military doctors please go to Parenya to and assist? That's the only time when you get an order on emergencies. On things that are planned, like for example, if we intend to manufacture our own helicopters, there is a study that is actually done. It doesn't just come from the commander and say, from tomorrow let's start to see how we can manufacture helicopters. No, They are actually feasibility studies. I learned feasibility studies before I went to university. So when I did them, even when I participated in this release for the Shirundu Bight Bridge Road, I was learning more from what I learned in the army. The army does not work on orders as most civilians believe. No, it's an organized system. It's a system where there is a report for every order that comes to you, a report in which you have participated in crafting yourself.
There's some people who believe that the opposition in this country is dead and Zanu PF is just running on its own and there's no possibility that Zanu PF can be removed from power. What is your view on this?
Hey, I can believe what they are saying because they are used to a certain type of politics. They are used to the type of politics where people make noise. Zanu PF is like this, I'm going to do this. That's not the kind of politician that I am. I actually don't believe in politicians myself. I believe in leaders. So if I see you as a leader, and I think you've got an appreciation of the politics of this country, you can work with me. If you are a technocrat, and I think you are a leader, and you understand the politics, then you can work with me. So I've got 3 levels of leadership. Someone who doesn't want to do anything else, even go into and so forth, but he is a leader. I take him. If he understands politics, it's a bonus. If he's a technocrat, not an engineer or whatever, someone who understands something beyond, right? Then you are a leader. I take you. We have erroneously called every leader a politician because they want to lead the country. I don't think I'm a politician in the normal way in which politicians are described. I actually don't like politicians, especially if they are not leaders.
So do you think you can canvass people around you as an idea to lead this country?
That's what we are doing. That's why we are taking long to get leaders. If I see someone, let's say I meet you and I say, we are in NPC, what do you think should be done to the country? And you start by saying, get rid of Mnangagwa, make sure. No, I know you are not a leader. Automatically. Then I ask you, how does getting rid of Mnangagwa solve our problems? If you tell me the solutions, then I think you are a leader, but you are influenced by the previous.
But your sole position, reason for being president of the NPC is for you to get rid of Mnangagwa so that you become president, is it not?
No, I don't necessarily want to get rid of Mnangagwa because he will still be a Zimbabwean even if he is not president. The main purpose is not, my main objective is to show the direction in which this country must go for it.
How do you do it without getting rid of Mnangagwa? Yeah.
People must change anyway. Even CEOs must change. His term is going to end anyway in 2028. And I'm very happy to replace him because for me to know what is not happening, which should be happening, is because I have seen Mnangagwa do it. So he's an important contributor to my vision. Even though he has not done to a certain level that I expect. So every leader is very important. What I just don't want in a person who calls himself a leader is to focus so much on political individuals, on political issues and so forth. Political issues have nothing to do with this country. What we call political issues sometimes are not political issues. They are development issues. I don't want you to mix development issues with politics. Once you do that, you become an African. You become Africa. And you will not go anywhere because you are confusing the building of a dam with the politics.
But aren't you contradicting yourself? Because you said that government, the role of government is to ensure that these things happen. And government is politics in itself, is it not?
It shouldn't be.
But it is.
No, it shouldn't be. It's because we don't understand government. That's why I think if you go to Europe, that's why they can sit down and talk about one issue without pointing a finger at the other leader. If we are discussing on solving the issue of transport across the Atlantic, for example, they sit down to talk about that, but they don't say, but you are corrupt, you are this in that meeting. The objective of that meeting is to come up with resources and strategy on how we can have a road to the Victoria Falls. When we get to that meeting, let's focus on the objectives. But here, people go into parliament and they are discussing underchild marriages. Then they start pointing each other and said, you are MDC, you are this, Zanu PF, you are corrupt. No, we are not discussing the corruption here. Let's have an agenda where we discuss corruption. But if we are in a meeting to discuss child marriages. Let's all focus on child marriages. That's why I say there's a difference between leadership and politics.
When child marriages is affected by political interventions, wouldn't you then...
how do you know?
Because many people have argued that the elephant in the room in Zimbabwe is not the laws. It is politics. It is politics that is affecting everything else.
You can't say it's not the laws, it's politics, when we know all our laws are political. So when you say that, you're also contradicting yourself. That's all I'm saying is, even if the politician, one politician in that room is responsible for the wrongdoings with the underaged minors, we should not get into that room and stand pointing a finger at you. In case we are pointing the finger at you, let's discuss the issue. His ill doings will come out as part of the discussion. Yes, among us, we have got one such person. But if you go there and start saying, blessed, you are a thief, then why are you there? Take him to jail. You get the point.
If he controls those who take people to jail and he holds the keys, and instead puts those who are innocent in jail and keeps those who are guilty outside.
That can only happen.
Discuss that.
No, you can't discuss that. Because if there is one person like that and he is not the president, it's simply a presidential meeting which decides, let's get rid of this person. It does not need a caucus. Where you know there is a person who is doing a wrongdoing and the president is aware, is made aware, the decision, the president makes that decision.
And if it's not made?
If it's not made. If it's not made, that's when you raise the issue now. That's when you take it to that level. The president, you are being political. We gave you this and this and this. You must have something that you have given to the president, something that is authentic. But we also know in African countries, sometimes you can prosecute the wrong person because his enemy has come and given you wrong information about him. So you also need to be very careful as a president. But I am saying, I'm answering the question that it is political. It's not. When it focuses on development, when it focuses on the defense of this country, the opposition and those in government must sit down and decide on a strategy to defend this country. It's not the time to be pointing a finger that you bought the wrong weapons and so forth. No. It's the time to say, using the weapons that we have, how can we defend the country? And what new weapons can you get? So I'm saying,
if you have the wrong weapons, if you know you have the wrong weapons, and if you send your people,
no. Yeah, that's the next stage. That's what I was coming to. That's why I was saying, what can we do to make sure that we strengthen our capacity? Right now, we know we've got one gun, but we need to strengthen our capacity. That becomes the purpose of leadership, of national leadership, whether it's opposition or what. Because whether we like it or not, we are not adequately equipped in many areas, including in road construction. That's why you find the same companies getting the tenders, because everyone else does not have a grader. What we need to sit down and say, how do we capacitate people so that we've got contractors of various shapes? That's what government should discuss. Not to say you are giving a job to this one only. He's the only one with the equipment.
Let us look at 2026 going forward as a nation. What do you think should be the major issues that Zimbabweans should put on the table?
It's the same issue that we've put forward before. One, let's make sure that the elections are free and fair in 2028. Let's make sure that especially the opposition understands issues of the country, understands why we are not moving forward, why the country is not progressing. It's important for the opposition to understand that. Otherwise, we'll keep on backing at the wrong tree. Let's make sure that we urge government, especially that those who can. I believe even if you are not in parliament, you can still talk to the president. Find time to say to him, President, I think A, B, C, D, if you consider this. Yes, I have no MP in parliament, but I am a citizen. First, I have a right to advise the president on what I think is right. I am a leader of an opposition party. I have an even bigger responsibility besides the right to advise the president. To say, what if we do this? And there are ways of advising a leader. Let's say you are our CEO. I should not wait for a meeting where everyone is to tell the CEO, you are not doing this, you are not doing this. No, I should find time to go to the CEO and give him a...
Have you found time to speak to the president?
Yes.
There.
Yes.
What has been his response to your conversations with him?
He said, thank you very much for your suggestions. I will look at them and then advise. I have had time, even on some projects that have already been undertaken, I've had to make a contribution. This project is useful for the country. Resources permitting, please, can we do this? I've had to contribute because I was one of the main participants at the bank when the feasibility studies for some of the projects were done, whether they are energy, whether they are roads and so forth. I also had the privilege of having been a vice chairman of ZESA. So each time I felt I had something to contribute, because, for example, if it's an argument starts today on the Batoka Gorge, and I've got information which I have from the past, I should not keep it. I should find a way for it to get to the president. Sometimes I don't have to speak to the president. I speak to someone who I know can speak to the president. I've got this on this topic. Can you please make sure it gets to the president? Whether he tells the president it came from me or not is none of my issue. What is important is that important information, important knowledge about anything that can make this country move forward should get access to those who are in charge of development. I should not keep it until I become president. But maybe by that time I would be dead and there would be no one to say it to the president. Yeah.
The other issue that you spoke about is free and fair elections in 2028. Yet Zanu PF has made it clear that it doesn't want to have elections in 2028, and they would be praying and moving the law to ensure that the president goes beyond.
Hey, those are their intentions. You see, I cannot kill you because you intend to marry a woman that I think one day I will propose to and she will marry me. I can't kill you if I see you following that woman. Zanu PF has got its own internal processes. They go to their conferences, they go to a congress, they go to their political meetings and discuss Zanu PF issues. And if Zanu PF thinks elections should be postponed to 2030 or whatever, yeah, that's Zanu PF thinking. It's not the government of Zimbabwe. The government in Zimbabwe is when things go to parliament, go to the Senate, and the president gets to sign and say, yes, we can change this. That's the time that bothers me, when it goes to parliament. But Zanu PF as a party has a right to discuss whatever it wants. It has nothing to do with me. Even if they say we want them to go to 2040, let them discuss. We are also discussing our own party issues, and they have nothing to do with Zanu PF. So the moment I focus on what is coming out of a Zanu PF meeting, I'm losing focus on my own responsibilities in respect of my political party. Each party has got a right to do that. So let them do it. I will worry about it when they then take it to parliament, and parliament, even if it has got a Zanu PF majority, then approves. That's when it becomes an issue to me. Then it becomes a matter of the law. And we know the law does not allow that. So I'm not worried. I don't know why people should worry about a meeting between a husband and his wife. Whether they think the husband is wrong and the wife is, let them decide what they want to do. Let Zanu PF decide what they think can happen. It makes me judge their ability to govern this country. If they really think that's going to happen, then there is something wrong with people advocating for that. But I know the Zanu PF that I know has nothing to do with that argument. But because it also allows what you call democracy, its people can speak the way they want. I don't want us to be surprised when we come to 2028 and in April, the president announces and says elections for this year, 2028, will be held on 23 August. Then we start saying, but you were saying it's 2030. Where did you believe them? It's your problem. It was their internal matter. But the president is a constitutional elite. For all I know, he's a lawyer. Assuming lawyers are supposed to attend the law. Most of them don't anyway. He is a president. Even if he was not a lawyer, he is a president. He knows what the law says. He's advised by those who read it. I know that president is not crazy. He's not going to. But he's not going to worry about your comments and what comes of it. That's democracy. Allow people to discuss freely what they want. In the end, as a president, you say, yeah, I know what you've said. I appreciate your concern. I appreciate you want me to continue. But the law says this. I don't think I am continuing. I expect him to say that one day.
I want to thank you very much, President Mubaiwa, for this amazing and wonderful discussion and conversation that we have had just as we get into 2026. But before I let you go, President Mubaiwa of the National People's Congress, you could address the people of Zimbabwe, something that I didn't ask you, something that weighs on your heart, just under 3 minutes. Over to you.
Were we actually having an interview? I thought it was a prelude to the interview. No, that's okay. You want me to say something to the people of Zimbabwe?
Yes, a message from you, if you have.
To everyone in Zimbabwe, members of my party, the leaders of my party, members of Zanu PF and every other party in Zimbabwe, I want to say thank you for having lived peacefully through 2025. I expect you to do the same through 2026. But as we move forward, I want everyone to recognize the need for change in families, in districts, in provinces, and in the country. I want you to think seriously about what kind of a Zimbabwe you want tomorrow, what kind of a Zimbabwe you want today. And as you think along those lines, remember the National People's Congress has come in as an alternative and as a contributor to the governance and development of this country. We welcome anyone who wants to work with us. We welcome any leader, especially leaders who want to come and work with us. Those who are typically politicians, please, this is not the time for you to come. I'm looking for politicians who are leaders or leaders who are politicians. This applies to every Zimbabwean, but I want you to prepare fully for the coming year. Have a wonderful new year and have a working and blessed 2026 and get ready for 2028. We will be on the ballot box. Don't ask anyone else. We are ready to be there. We will be there. Thank you.
Amazing. I want to thank you very much, Wilbert Asbodu Mubaiwa, the President of the National People's Congress. Now, this is and this will always be the situation right now with me, your host as usual, Dara B. We at Heart and Soul TV and Radio have an intention of allowing all citizens to be heard, creating a platform for you, Zimbabweans, to access ideas, to communicate your ideas and your thoughts so that we build this nation. We believe that Zimbabwe can be built by people who talk to each other and not through each other. This is your platform. This is the heart and soul of the nation. And I, Dara B. Until next time, please take care. Don't drink and drive. Liyakuthanda, ngiyakuhlonipha abantu baZimbabwe. Ufuna ukuthi uhlale kahle ubone umnyaka ubuye impilo yakho right. Until next time, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much for coming through.
Yes.